You don't need me to tell you how unreal it is that we are adding to the yearly calendar of the Jewish people the term Simchat Torah massacre. Those three words do not belong together. Simcha, joy, Torah, and massacre. And yet, here we are. Many are searching for historical metaphor, another moment in time that can inform what this moment in time is right now. Is this our 9/11, our Pearl Harbor, our Kristallnacht? Some are looking to the Kishinev pogrom of 1903, an absolutely brutal massacre of Jews. Chaim Nachman Bialik went to Kishinev to report on that massacre. When he left, he wrote a poem that is considered one of the most influential poems in modern Jewish history. It starts, Kum, lech lecha el ir haharega, arise and go now to the city of slaughter. There, he says, with your own hand, touch, and with the eyes of your head, behold, on tree, on stone, on fence, on mural clay, the spattered blood. See for yourself, he continues, the open mouth of such wounds that no mending shall ever mend, no healing ever heal. The poem goes on at length to describe the anguish and helplessness of diaspora Jewry. It is a scathing critique of inaction. Many scholars say that it jolted the Jewish community into the activism that ultimately created the state of Israel. 120 years later, we are confronted with similar scenes of bloodshed and destruction. We are seeing new, horrific cities of slaughter. My teacher from the Hartman Institute, Micha Goodman, says that this massacre, the Simchat Torah massacre, was, among other things, like a text message from the Jewish past, from places like Kishinev and times like 1903. He describes the 12 hours between 6:30 in the morning and 6:30 in the evening as a 12 hours in which it was as if there were no Israel, when people begged and pleaded for rescue and no one came. As we look through our screens from afar, as we see the spattered blood on tree, on stone, on fence, on mural clay, we see how vulnerable we remain and how much we need Jewish sovereignty to protect ourselves, how critical that is to our very survival. But Micha also points to the truly indomitable Jewish spirit, the way in which people are running to return from Israel from around the world for their military service, including members of our own congregation, and the way those in Israel are donating more blood than the blood banks can handle. He jokes that Israelis don't wait in line. And now, too, they are cutting in line, elbowing each other out of the way to be the first to enlist, the first to help. He points to those who in the darkest hours did not wait for the army or anyone else to rescue them. They jumped in their cars, they picked up their weapons, they protected whoever they could. My favorite story of resistance could come straight out of the Bible. It's a story in the city of Ofakim, when terrorists invaded the home of 70-year-old Rachel Edry. She offered up her captors treats and conversation. She played a game with them. You teach me one word in Arabic and I'll teach you one in Hebrew. She entertained them for hours while she secretly made hand signals to the troops she knew were waiting outside. They came in and killed the terrorists. She said those terrorists probably knew that they were going to die. They probably missed their mothers. So I played that role. That's the indomitable Jewish spirit. As Rabbi Calvin said, there's so much we're feeling right now: grief, sadness, worry, fear, outrage. I want to say a few words in addition to all of those emotions about loneliness. Many have told me in recent days that what they feel above all is profoundly lonely. In their places of work, amongst their friends, with their colleagues, they are surrounded by people who have not reached out, whose silence is simply deafening. Or even those who have expressed the unconscionable idea that Israel brought this upon itself. Unconscionable. I want to tell you about a few things that I've encountered this week to combat that loneliness. I was invited yesterday to a very small lunch with both California senators, Alex Padilla and LaFonza Butler. It was an off-the-record, intimate conversation arranged by the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles. Our two senators came to hear what leaders from across the city had to say, Jewish leaders. And as they spoke, they were clear in denouncing the horrors and terrorism inflicted by Hamas. I told them that we need all the friends we can get right now, and they affirmed unequivocally their friendship and their support. And I also want you to hear these words written by Bishop William Barber, who spoke to us 2 years ago on Yom Kippur. This week, he wrote, "I am weeping with my Jewish brothers and sisters, both in Israel and around the world, as they mourn the horrific acts of terrorism in Israel this past weekend. The stories of civilians murdered and families kidnapped are gut-wrenching. In grief, we are wrapped in darkness, and there are no words to express the weight that we feel." He continues, "We must be clear that terrorism is not a protest against injustice, but rather an act of despair that creates more suffering for everyone. Let us build on the basis of a broad consensus that acts of terror have no place in our struggle for justice. Hate cannot drive out hate. We must meet each other in our shared grief and find a better way." The reaching out from those outside of the Jewish community has been profoundly comforting in this time of loneliness. Indeed, these coming days and weeks and months and years are going to be very difficult. Israel must discern how to respond to this unprecedented week. And I must share with you that without wavering one bit in my support of Israel, I also worry about innocent Palestinian lives that have been lost and will be lost. I understand that some of us cannot access compassion for Palestinian suffering right now. I really understand that. These are among the hardest dilemmas that we face as human beings. To be clear, I support Israel in showing its strength and expressing its understandable fury. How else could anyone respond to sheer brutality? And I agree that every effort must be made to bring the hostages home. And at the same time, on this Shabbat Bereshit, I wonder if we can stretch to remember that this parsha teaches that all human beings carry the image of God. And so I pray above all for creativity in leadership, so that the way forward is something other than an endless cycle of violence and revenge. And if you and I don't exactly see eye to eye on what must come next, I promise in the coming days to listen to your perspective. I promise to hold it and honor it and hear what you have to say as the Jewish people faces this unprecedented crisis and struggles to respond. After all, listening is one of the ways that we love each other through this difficult moment. And that's the main message I have for you, the beautiful souls of Temple Israel of Hollywood. Shabbat Shalom.